back to A Pain in the Art. This week we've got Holly Atkinson with us, with Robyn Patterson, and we're going to be discussing the first steps into the industry. So Robyn, I'll start with you. What was your first experience in the industry like?
Well, first of all, just context. Holly is also one of the producers of TheSouthAfreakins and the Afreakin family. Hello. As well. So she is... it's great to have you on board and also be having your very first producing credit, which is very exciting. My first foray into the industry professionally was when I was 12. And I don't know why my parents decided to take me seriously at 12 years old in deciding to be an actor. I don't know why they didn't just think
brave.
It was like,
yeah.
Isn't it? I thought they might think it was just like a fanciful passing of being like, sure.
It's a phase.
Yeah, she'll want to be a race car driver, tomorrow. But I think, because I think I've always wanted to do this my whole life. When I was 12, my mother drove me up. My neighbour was 12 years old as well and had an agent in Auckland.
Oh,
and I think, it was a very competitive small town. I used to do speech and drama with Kimbra. You know, we all came out of this, small hotbed of talent, a town called Hamilton. Good old Kimbra. How's she doing? Chris Johnson, if you're listening to me, tell me how Kimbra's doing. Chris Johnson is Kimbra's mum, and she tells me all the time how Kimbra's doing. I'd like to know. Anyway, so my neighbour had an agent, and then my mum was like, I think we should get Robyn an agent. So she drove me up to Auckland, which is like a 2-hour drive away, and I did a weekend intensive course, where essentially you work on camera for a woman who works for the agencies, and you put tapes down, and you do an audition workshop. And then the tapes are sent off to agencies that represent children, and agents that they like you pick you up. And so one agent picked me up, and so I got my first agent when I was 12. And I remember my very first audition, and I was 12 years old, and it was for a Kellogg's cornflake breakfast television presenter on Kids News. You know that Simpsons episode where it's Kids News and it's da 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 da. It was like that, but there was a host.
Yeah.
And I did the audition. And then I think they must have really liked me because they were like, here's a script, go outside and work on the script for 5 minutes and come back. And then my cold reading really wasn't all that at the time. And so I think I kind of flubbed that. But that's kind of, and then I had an audition probably once every 2 or 3 weeks, and then my mum would take me out of school and drive me up there and yeah. And I'll tell you, my most nerve-wracking moment was when I got my first professional role on Shortman Street when I was 14. And I was on set, and I was 14, and I remember I had to go work up with a children's dialogue coach before I went on camera. So a woman, what was her name? Oh man, she was on Shortman Street for years working with the kids. Oh, and I loved her, and I can't remember what her name is. But I went and worked with her, and she was like, so, do you watch the show? And I wasn't allowed to watch Shortman Street because I grew up in a really strict household, and it's a soap opera and people are always having sex on it. So I was like, no, I'm not allowed to watch it. And my mum smacked me under the table being like,
you've seen every episode.
Yes, exactly. What are you saying? And I remember I was sitting on set, and it was my first day on set, and I remember an art department person came up in front of me and put down a glass of orange juice. And she said, and I was so nervous, man. I was 14, working with people that I'd seen on TV, that suddenly I couldn't really believe that I was on set. And I remember the art department person putting a glass down in front of me of orange juice, and all I heard her say was, drink it. But I knew she had said something before that, so I didn't know if she said, don't drink it, or you can drink it. And she left before I could ask her. And then I can hear the director going, okay, we're going to go for a take. And I wanted to be like, no, wait, am I allowed to drink this? Can I not drink this? So the scene they use is me sitting at a table poking at this orange juice with a straw, playing with the ice. Because I was like, I don't know if I'm allowed to drink this or not. And you can see the utter terror in my very first scene etched on my face, being like, oh my god, the orange juice, what do I do? Do I not? Do I drink it? Do I not? What do I do? That was my very first experience, I would say, in the professional world. Now, you're how old are you, Hoss?
23.
You're 23.
Yeah.
Where are you at? And how do you feel about trying to get into the industry or being in the industry at 23? Do you feel like you're in the industry?
Yes and no. I think it's like the turn into adulthood. I feel like it's the same sort of feeling of you are technically an adult, but you absolutely have no clue what you're doing and you don't feel like you are. And I feel like it's the exact same feeling. So people keep kind of looking to me to be like, okay, now's the time, and I'm like, yeah.
Now's the time for what?
Now's the time to like go out and do shit, and but you're still taking the baby steps. I remember just thinking about my like first time of like going into like drama and knowing that I wanted to do acting, and I remember moving to this new school, and I was there for about 3 weeks, and the drama teacher was like, okay, I need to cast you in this play because I like what you're doing in the class. And she was like, so I'm gonna put you in the main part. I was like, what? And like I was the new kid as well, so I was like trying to be like cool. And like then
and you just come in and take the lead role.
Yeah, take the lead role, and then everyone was kind of like, okay. It was all girls' school as well, so it was just like not good. But yeah, it was that was my kind of first interest in drama. But yeah, and then it's kind of gone from that into uni.
Did you try out for drama school, or did you go straight to uni?
I didn't. I went to university actually because I thought, one, partly because I didn't want to go through the horror of auditioning. I just felt like that was way too overwhelming at the time. But also I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a straight like actor, and uni kind of gave me the opportunity to go into try a bit of producing, try a bit of directing, and kind of have a broader look at it. And also I kind of used uni because I just wanted to get into central London. Like obviously it's so expensive, so like trying to get into London like without without money is quite difficult. So student loan, come on in. And then so that enabled me to get into London, and I thought if I can get into London then I can start from, that's like a good starting point. And then so I went to London South Bank University, which is just like the most central uni that like I could get to, and the drama department is good. And then I kind of figured like, oh, if I wanted to do a master's, I would then look at drama school if that was something that I was still interested in. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it all.
And what do you want to do? Because you've come on board as a producer.
Yeah.
But I know you predominantly as an actor.
Yeah.
Where does what do you want to do both? Does one call to you more? Does one scare you more than the other? Where are you in terms of wanting to pursue the dream, I suppose?
It's like an internal struggle basically, because producing to me comes very naturally, because I'm generally a very organised person. If I don't know how to do something, I'll find out how to do it. And it's just something I find really easy. Whereas acting is something that's much more of a passion of mine, and I've really loved it my like whole life. But then the actual getting into it I find so much more scary, because I find it is quite like you're constantly thinking about yourself. It's very aesthetic, and like I feel like I constantly have to prove myself, and like show that I can do stuff, which I find quite difficult, because I'm very much of like, I like people to tell me I'm doing well. So then to constantly be hearing like, no, not today, it's just like, oh fuck. Like that for me is my own internal like struggle. So I have to teach myself that, that doesn't define me as a person.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, so in terms of like what I want to do is like still very much up in the air. But I think you said it to me because I was like very much, oh, am I a producer or am I an actor? And I think it hit home when you were like, you don't have to put yourself in one box. Like you can do both. So it's just about, I think I need to just try both and then see which one's kind of more predominant. But yeah, it's a process, definitely a process.
How are you finding producing the shows for Edinburgh?
Oh, I'm loving it. Yeah, I'm really liking it. I'm learning so much as well, which is so nice and refreshing, because like I feel like with uni and school and everything, you have like this whole, like your whole life is just structured, isn't it? You're told to go to school, you're told to go to the next year. Like I took a year out and that was a bit daring, and then I went to uni, but I was like, I can take a year out because I know uni's still going to be there. But then you get to the end of uni and it's like there is nothing else, there's life, and it's stupid really because you don't get prepared for that at all. So then to be able to go into a job where I'm actually learning new stuff at the same time is really nice, because it's like the nice career mix of like you're doing the job but you're also learning on the job.
What would you say to young actors or producers out there who feel that same kind of fear that you feel? What advice would you give them in order to not let that fear stop you from at least giving it everything you've got, or giving it a damn good go? What advice would you give them?
I'll let you know once I've done it. No,
You do realise I'm asking you because I'm trying to make you say it to yourself.
I know.
This is a very meta question. I'm trying to get you to give yourself a pep talk.
I just think it's, I don't know. I think it's a lot of it is kind of self-belief, and it kind of, it's you have to try it. Like it's like I always say, Tom's gonna hate me for saying this, but he's
give context as to who Tom is.
So Tom's my boyfriend, and he's rubbish at trying new foods. And I always say to him, like a mother, like, you don't know what it tastes like until you've tried it. And I have to apply that same advice to my career and everything that I do, because you're not going to get anywhere, are you? Otherwise, you're not ever going to take those steps going forward, which is silly, really. But it's a lot easier said than done, I think, especially because especially like mental health and everything like that, my self-doubt can be so overwhelming sometimes that it's just I just find myself, I'm just like, I just want to go into a hole and like not have it. And then I think coupled with the career of being an actor, where it's very like personal, where it feels very personal and it's about you and it's someone telling what you are, it's just so, I find it so overwhelming sometimes.
It's so funny you say that, because when I started out, I never ever used to think of the rejection. Ever. When I was younger and I was leaving school, my mother would drive me out for auditions. Honestly, that in itself was such an exciting joy for me, to just get into the room, that every day I used to come home from school and ask my mum, and I'd be like, did I get an audition today? And these are the days of faxes. So I always used to come home and check the fax machine. And if I could see like a tear of like paper out of the fax machine, I'd be like, I knew a script would have come through, so I knew an audition would have come through. Just getting the audition for me was the joy. I remember coming out of auditions being like, that was so much fun. It never occurred to me that I might actually get the role. I don't know what it was. It might have just been naivety and stupidity, but I never thought it would go any further. I just kind of was like, that was great. And I remember probably after about 4 years of auditioning, my mother said, God, I don't understand how you can handle the rejection. God, it's rejection after rejection, and I wouldn't be able to do it. And it was 4 years that I went, I am being rejected. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh yeah, I totally didn't get any of those roles. It just hadn't occurred to me that is what was happening. I just loved the fact I got to get into the room and get in front of the camera. It was like little bits of sugar. It just kind of maintained my interest. And then I'd go back to school and go back to real life, but I would feel like an actor going into auditions. And then probably after she said that to me, I didn't start taking it personally. I started going, oh, that's weird. Why didn't I get cast in that? I really thought I did well in that. So I must be wrong then if I didn't get this role. And then that's when I started asking about classes, and then that's when I started going up and doing weekend intensive workshops with casting directors, which again led into my networking. It just was a natural progression.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like anything. If you focus on anything and the bad parts of any job, it doesn't matter what job it is, you will feel inadequate and you will feel completely miserable. And the thing is not to focus on the terrible parts of it, but more so how you feel about it. And if something's off that's affecting your love about what you're doing, then you need to fix what's off. And if what's off is that you're not getting cast, well, this is odd. I don't like this. What can I do to change this? I need to get some training underneath my belt. I need to go to classes. I need to get feedback from my agent why I didn't get this. It's not about just going, if somebody says to you, not today, it's kind of like, I don't know, dating. If a guy says to you, not today, it's probably not you. It's probably all about them.
Yeah.
And it's the same with acting. It's not about you. I mean, if you're not getting cast in anything after a year, well then, yeah, it's probably you, and you probably need to figure out what the hell it is. But I mean, if you're going for 20 auditions and you're being told no out of 15 of them and yes for 5, that's all right.
Yeah.
Then you need to move up to after you've done 10 jobs at that level, it's now time to move up to the next level. And like any industry and any job, you progress and you move upwards. But I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day. Actually, it wasn't the other day, it was yesterday. A really dear friend of mine from New Zealand's come over, and he's a very well-known New Zealand playwright. And I actually met him because he used to write for Shortland Street. And he had written himself an acting role and decided to foray into acting on the soap opera while I was back on in 2010. And we just got on like an absolute house on fire, and that was nearly 10 years ago, and he's still a very dear friend of mine. And so he's over here in London, and I saw him yesterday for a coffee. And we were talking about this, and we were talking about kind of like the goldfish analogy of how goldfish grow to the size of the bowl that they're in. And if you get a bigger bowl, then goldfish grow larger, and it's so on and so forth. And it's the same I was kind of talking about in terms of society and talking about in certain areas of your life. And I was saying, I love being over here and I love being in London because I feel like there are more things over here that feed me in terms of wanting to test my limits. And I was talking about this in another podcast actually, and I was saying for some people, I have a very, very talented friend who's a singer, and she's unreal. She's unbelievable. But she works in finance. And she's very, very happy working in finance. And she's very happy knowing she can sing, singing in bars every now and then, getting like the odd gig with a friend who plays the piano and leaving it at that. She's really happy at reaching that ceiling of her talent. And she has no desire to push through the glass ceiling and go any higher and explore those outer limits. And it's all about that thing. If you are really happy as where you are and in the bowl that you're in, there shouldn't be anybody to tell you or push you to the next realm of your ability. If you are happy and you love what you do at the level that you're doing it, then brilliant. But if you know that you can be better than this, and if you know that you are capable of something, there's an unexplored realm of your talent, and there's an innate, like you say, curiosity in terms of exploring how far you can go, and what can you do, and what changes can you affect out there, and what can you create that makes you feel like you are great, or one of the greats, or it takes you to that next level, then what is worse? Staying in the bowl that you're in and at the size that you're in, and having that regret of never exploring the outer nether regions or going to the next size up bowl, or feeling that utter terror, like you say, because anybody who moves outside of their comfort zone or pushes themselves feels uncomfortable. I mean, it's me since I decided to do Edinburgh in December. Playing 4 characters is doing my goddamn head in. But the regret of not doing it would be worse. Yeah. So it's kind of that thing of you need to make the choice on what you would rather suffer with. Would it, like you say, you want to go into your hole? Go into your hole. That's fine. But I always knew that and this was my worst nightmare. I'm pretty sure I wrote it in my diary when I was about 16. And for some other people, it would be the dream. But for me, it would be married at 28, 3 children, in the town that I grew up, the hotbed of talent that is Hamilton, looking out the window of a house that I own, and wondering why I never tried, and wondering why I didn't give it a go. I want to act. I've always wanted to act. It's not about focusing on the no's or the rejection that I had for so many years before I realized that I probably actually have to train really hard at this. I always just knew I never wanted to wonder what if. That was my driving force. And for some other people, being married at 28 with 3 children in a beautiful little house in the beautiful city that is Hamilton is the utter dream. And that's great. But you have to decide what is what's worse for you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know.
That was a very long spiel.
Yeah. I feel empowered.
Oh, do you? Good.
Yeah. And I think it's that thing of deciding is, I don't know, I find it scarier than it probably has to be. But yeah, no, it is that thing. And it is that thing of I don't want to give up. And I don't want to say, you know, and be there and be like, oh, well, I could have done that, but I just shied away from it because of fear. It's just, yeah, it's just, I just find it all so overwhelming, and my head just that's the thing we always talk about, is just your head just comes in, and it's like, it's just, I remember one of my teachers at uni said it's that little fucker at the back of your head that's like, you can't do it, what you doing, you're an idiot, and you have to just like bat it away.
It's not that thing of batting that voice away in your head. If anything, it's really listening to that voice and going, okay, sure. And then going, well, you know what, I'm just, that's great that you think that, but I'm going to go ahead and do this.
Yeah.
That voice is, you have to realize that voice holds no power over you, because that voice is so very much, there's no weight behind it. It's not like it's a voice of Patrick Stewart or Judi Dench telling you that you can't do this, which, you know, if Judi Dench told me I couldn't do it, I probably would give myself pause and maybe like reflect on exactly why she's saying that to me, because I would take her opinion.
Judy.
Yeah, Judy. Come on, Judy. Why? Why is it
chance?
At least come and see the shows, Judy, before you say that. But it's very much that thing of that voice doesn't have any weight behind it. So why would you listen to it?
Yeah. I guess something I do struggle with is the difference between whether I'm doing it for myself or whether I'm doing it for other people. And that is something I do struggle with, because I really feel like I'm doing well when I'm told I'm doing well. And words of affirmation really like hit home for me, and I feel loved, and I'm like, yes, this is what I'm doing. But then I stop, or the words stop, and then I'm like, oh, hang on a second, am I doing this for me, or am I doing it, or am I basing my value on other people's opinions? And that's something I struggle with.
What would you say is the hardest thing about starting out in this industry, apart from the voice in your head and that insecurity of, are you doing it for you or are you doing it for somebody else? What are you finding is the hardest about getting your foot into this industry and starting to actually be regarded as a professional?
I think everybody's opinions. I think I put the pressure on myself to impress other people, but also you've got the other opinions of like, oh, well, it's not really, I mean, it's really hard work, it's going to be really difficult. So you've got that voice, and then it's got the other voice of like, oh, you know, you've got to give it a go, you've got to try it, like, you won't know. And then it's just like all these voices, and then you actually like lose track of what you were doing in the first place. That's what I find difficult.
It sounds crowded.
It sounds very crowded. It's very crowded in here at the moment. Everyone just needs to leave. I can't think. Yeah, which is difficult. Because everyone's got to have a fucking opinion, haven't they? Everyone has a fucking opinion on your life and your choices. And you think you're going down the right path, and then one person will make one comment, and then you're like, just spins you out of control.
But I find that bizarre, Holly, that somebody is, and I've seen you act, and somebody is talented, and somebody who can clearly produce like you can. And don't take these words of affirmation, because my opinion means nothing to you. But I find it strange that anybody's opinion would have that effect on you. I have certain people in my life whose opinions mean a lot to me. One is my dear friend from New Zealand who I saw yesterday for a coffee. And a few others include my parents, a very select circle of friends, and a couple of teachers. Mike Sisente, my Meisner teacher, his opinion means a hell of a lot to me. But other people if they say things, and it's one of the reasons that I left, and I moved to a bigger country with a bigger population and a bigger societal scope. So I could really open myself up more to wider opinions and wider pools of thought and different points of view on not just what I'm doing and not just what the industry is, but on kind of everything. But there are some people out there whose opinions, may I just say, are very vocal about their opinions. And it's kind of like that Sex and the City quote of where Samantha says, darling, if I worried about what every bitch thought about me, I'd never leave the house.
Yeah.
So why is everybody, my question to you is, why is just an opinion from
But no, but
anyone?
I think it is those opinions from those people that matter that really affect me.
But then I would ask the question, why are they, if their opinions aren't of anything except support, because they know how important this is to you, or they obviously know about your scope of talent, would you not question as to why they're saying what they're saying? And perhaps that maybe it's got more to do with them than it is to do with you?
Yeah. It's just, I think it's just one of those, I don't know, it's when you care about people, I don't know, you just want to please. I'm a people pleaser and I just want to please, which is, I know is ridiculous, because it's at the end of the day, those people who care about you, whatever you do, they're going to be, if they're, you know, proper friends, family, they're going to be there for you. But I guess, I don't know, I just do care, and I just do think about their opinions, and it does just get to me, comments that are made and stuff like that. Yeah.
So moving forward, what do you think like your next ideal step would be for going into the industry? And I can go for both of you. Like, I know obviously, Robyn, this isn't like your first steps, but what do you think like the next move is?
Counselling.
Yeah. Yeah, clearly.
Therapy.
Yeah. I don't know. I think where I am at now is I would like to take a step, because when I've come out of uni, without being too big-headed, I've just been offered jobs.
Yeah.
So I've been taking stuff that I've been offered. I've not actually gone and like applied for anything. I mean, I've gone for a few auditions and stuff like that, but there's not been anything that I'm like, oh my god, I really want to do that. So I think I want to seek out specifically what I want to do, or find a job, an acting job that I'm like, I really want that part, and actually apply for it and actually really try and go for it, rather than like kind of floating on the coattails of other people and just them being like, oh, you'll be good at this, come and join me, and I'll be like, okay, yeah, that's a good opportunity, because it's all good opportunities and they're all new skills, but I need to find out what I really want, and I want to take that step.
Are you saying that you didn't want to be a producer for the South Africans?
No.
You know, we're still a couple of months away from Edinburgh, Holly. It's totally fine.
No, I do want to do that. But I just took it because it was there, do you know what I mean? And it was like, okay, great, this is my next step. It was like, cool, that's something I can do, rather than me like actually sitting down with myself and going, okay, actually, what do I want? What do I want from this? Which is which I hate. It's just really big question, I find. And you have to be so honest with yourself.
Yes, you do.
Which I find difficult.
That's a really good point. I feel like I'm the same. I'm getting to a point now of where I very much have to ask myself, what do I want? And it's because what I want now is very different to what I wanted 10 years ago. I'll be 8 years ago I was studying in New York, and I thought I knew exactly what I wanted. And now when you're 32, it was kind of when I left New York, when I said, I'm going to be back when I'm 27, 28, and I didn't. I went to London instead, and it's because what you want when you are 24 is very different to what you want when you're 28 or 30. So I'm in that same boat at the moment as well, of asking myself, what do I want? And I would be lying if I said, for this whole process of Edinburgh and getting ready for Edinburgh and rehearsing the 2 shows and everything that it entails, the design and the marketing and the press releases and the trailers and the shooting and the rehearsals and the writing and the podcasts and the social media and the Edinburgh preview shows and the networking and just everything, I would be lying if I said the whole time I was absolutely solid in my choice of going back a second time around is absolutely the right decision. Because part of me goes, I don't feel that absolute gung-ho, crazy passion that I did when I was 26. I have rehearsals now for an hour and a half and I feel exhausted. I don't want to rehearse anymore. I worry about how I'm actually going to do Edinburgh this year and being out on the mile for 5 hours a day and then rehearsing every day and then flying back to London to coach every Sunday. It's just going to be mad.
Yeah.
So it's that thing as well of being completely honest. And for somebody who's only wanted to act their whole lives, it's very hard to look at myself now and go, is this honestly still what I want?
Yeah.
Because there are other things that now are starting to carry more weight than act. And that is, I'd like to get married. Well, God, if somebody marries me, I mean, there's got to be two people involved, doesn't there? So it's got to be somebody. So probably meet someone. But it's that thing of going, I would quite not like to die alone.
Yeah.
And I would quite like to have a dog, which means that I'd quite like to have a stable base.
Yeah.
And I quite like coaching. And so does that mean it's that thing exactly what you said of you don't pigeonhole yourself anymore, but yes, you have to be quite honest with yourself. And sometimes it is that thing of, am I holding on to misguided younger visions I had of myself that might not necessarily translate in this more mature, and I say mature as in like mature cheese, like just aged.
Yeah.
Aged version of myself.
Yeah.
And it can be quite affronting, and it can be quite frightening. But I think the one thing that you should take solace in is that you've got the rest of this is your time. I mean, the 20s are, my God, it's your time to go out and fall flat on your face, you know? And I want you to go out and fall flat on your face for you. That's what I'd love to see.
Yeah. I think and I think it's the thing of working out what I want now, because I find myself constantly living in the future, which just, my anxiety just goes like off the roof kind of thing, because I'm always living in the future of what's happening next week, what's happening next month, what's happening 2 months, rather than living in the now and what do I want now, which is just so important, because you just miss everything that's going past you otherwise.
So that's been a lovely chat. It's really useful to get like this sort of insight. So thank you very much for watching. Our information is down below. Bye. We are at 33 minutes. We're now Jesus minute.
Jesus minute?
Yeah, Jesus was 33 when he died. I don't know why I know that.
Fucking hell.
That's so weird.